All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Strathfield Council Town Hall for a town hall tonight around the proposed boundary change of the Strathfield Homebush boundary. I know there are many views in the room, so we're going to try and keep tonight very respectful. We'll do our best to manage that. A special acknowledgement to the guests in the room, including the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Benjamin Kai, Councillor Sandy Reddy, our General Manager, Mr. Michael Mamo, and our Director of Community and Corporate, Christy Watts. I always get the department's names wrong. Okay, so tonight we have a little bit of admin. So we are here tonight to discuss the proposal that has the potential to make a long and lasting positive difference for our community. And before we begin, I'm supposed to read something official. Here we go. Okay. Oh, yeah, perfect. There we go. Sorry. Before we proceed, I need to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. By remaining in the room, you are consenting to be recorded, and this record will be kept by council as part of our consultation process. You won't be picked up if you don't have the mic in front of you, so we'll have Christy run to give you guys, whoever's speaking, the mic at the appropriate time. All right, moving on. What are we starting with? I might give to Christy, who will kick off a bit of you can see it in front of you there, the overview, and then we'll go to me after that. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. So I'm just going to kick us off with just an overview of the proposal. So most of you, we ran out of pamphlets, sorry, but most of you have a pamphlet in front of you. So if you find it easier to follow along with the pamphlet, please feel free to do so. So the proposal you can see up on the slide now looks at the entire area south of the railway line, including Strathfield apartments, to become a part of the suburb Strathfield. So you can see here it's the red part on the map, and again, those who have it printed out in front of you, you can have a closer look there if you need to. Before I answer the why, I did get asked a few questions from some of you prior to starting the session, which was, where did this proposal come from? And it's a really good question. So I thought I'd quickly answer that. It's a good one to start us off. And the councillors made a resolution earlier this year through discussion and consideration, which the Mayor will talk to you more about later. So the councillors have put forward a resolution to work with the community and make this proposal that's before you this evening. So why did the councillors put this forward? So the change is being considered to provide a clearer and more logical suburb boundary, aligning with built features such as the railway line and major roads. And the aim of the proposal is to reduce confusion for residents, visitors, businesses and emergency services. For those of you who have had an opportunity to go to our website, you'll see that we have answered some frequently asked questions. I won't go through these in complete detail, but they are there for you if you'd like to go and look at them. But some key questions are around, what does the name change mean for local schools or the train station? So this is not part of the proposal, so it isn't proposed to change the name of a train station or school, for example, if it has Homebush attached to it. Will addresses need to be updated? So yes, addresses would need to be updated for those areas that would change if the proposal went ahead. And what council does is we actually let the appropriate authorities know. So a lot of it is done by council and some of it is done by residents. So if we were to change, we work with residents on who needs to do which part, and we'd work through that with you so you understood and were looked after and didn't miss something. Will this impact emergency services, postal delivery and the voting enrolment? So as per my last comment, we actually inform emergency services and Australia Post. You would need to update your enrolment details, however, so that wouldn't get picked up automatically. Is this a full boundary change? So the proposed suburb boundary line will only be the area south of the railway line, which is currently part of Homebush and would instead be renamed Strathfield. So a little bit about how consultation works. So as I mentioned earlier this year, Council adopted a report and supported the proposal that we put before you this evening. And that proposal may or may not progress to the Geographical Names Board, but if it does, part of their expectation of us and part of our expectation of ourselves is to consult with you and seek our community's views on any change such as this one. So the GMB is actually an independent authority and they manage place names across the state. And their role is to ensure that every proposal is backed by a strong reason. Things like community identity, clear boundaries and safety for emergency response are examples of those. They also require evidence, including maps, confirmation that the name is unique and a proof of common community consultation. So we are currently inviting feedback and tonight is an example of that, but there is also feedback that can be provided via a form on the website or by writing into Council as well. So if Council was to progress, we would then lodge a proposal to the Geographical Names Board and then they go through a review. And in most cases, that could take about 3 to 4 months. So if it was approved, the change is then gazetted, which means it then becomes legally binding. From there, the address databases are updated, authorities are notified, and residents are then formally advised. So it is a process that checks, balances our accountability at every step and ensures that we've engaged appropriately. The next table is an indicative table of time, and it gives an indicative timeline. So we're currently in consultation, which concludes on the 14th of September. And what happens is the lovely David down here, who's in my team, has to bring all of the community comments together and he prepares a report for Council, which we report to them and outline all of the feedback we've received from the community. And that helps then the councillors determine whether or not they would progress the application to the Geographical Names Board. And that will occur at the October council meeting this year. If the council determines that they will progress, then an application would be made on or around the 31st of October. Then we go through consultation and review with the Geographical Names Board. As I mentioned before, that can take up to 4 months. So we wouldn't expect a decision to be returned until March, April 2026. Another version of this could be that based on feedback, the councillors might decide they want to change the proposal. If they change the proposal, then we start community consultation again. So we go through the process, we would send out information to you to let you know that the proposal's changed, and we'd invite feedback just as we are now and have been on that particular proposal. If that occurred and it was a different kind of proposal, then you could adjust these dates to suit, because that proposal and that consultation would then take up to another month or so to work through. So you wouldn't expect then a change until mid next year. So thank you for that, listening to that. Before I hand to the Mayor, there were a couple of questions that we received through your registration. So thank you to those who took the time to send those questions in. They were really good questions. The first one was a great question, and that was, by coming under Strathfield zone, will my council rates go up from my present rates? And that's a great question. So your rates will actually continue to be calculated as they are now. So council rates are determined by land value, which is set by the New South Wales Valuer General, and the rating structure is adopted each year by council. So those calculations apply consistently across our whole government area, local government area, regardless of the suburb that you live in. So whether your address, say, is Homebush or Strathfield, your rates will continue to be assessed in exactly the same way. This change was more about reducing confusion, strengthening community identity, and aligning boundaries with clear landmarks, not about raising rate revenue. Next question was, now council wants to move the boundary. Why? It appears to be a push for an increase in status also. Better to live in Strathfield than Homebush. All a wasted exercise, so what is the hidden agenda? I'm going to let the Mayor answer this in more detail when he speaks, but reflecting on the councillors' initial views for the proposal, they do see this as an opportunity to strengthen and enhance all of our communities with a change that looks firmly to the future. The transit-oriented development will play a central role in shaping the future of Homebush, and as it grows and evolves, this change will ensure we're planning for and supporting what will ultimately become a much larger and thriving community. So this change supports growth for both areas. Our next question was, has council detailed the costs and time needed by all concerned? That is, council, residents, ratepayers and businesses to notify such a big change to everything and everybody. So we are very mindful of the time and cost involved in such a change. We have actually undertaken a similar process before, where parts of Belfield were renamed to Strathfield South. And we successfully supported that community through working through that change. We do have the resources and experience to manage this kind of change, and will ensure clear communication at every step, just as we did with Belfield residents at that time. Should the proposal progress, this process is expected to take around 6 months just for the change process. So that's an additional 6 months to the table that I showed you earlier in terms of if we change. And we do that in close partnership with our residents, local businesses, and we do that to ensure a smooth and inclusive transition. One last one, which wasn't a question necessarily, but we have received also a petition signed by approximately 230 residents and business owners, indicating a level of support for the proposed changes. However, that petition also suggested an alternative approach that differs slightly from the original proposal. And what will happen is that will then go forward to the councillors to also consider at the October council meeting. And it looks like this. So you can see, does my pointer work? Yeah, there. You can see this is the proposal at the moment, and they're suggesting to extend it along here. So completely south of the train line. Okay, thank you for listening. I will hand over to the Mayor now to take us through the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Christy. Look, I think something to mention before I continue is just that, tonight was put on to the benefit of the community. We want to give you guys an opportunity to tell councillors and council how you feel about this, whether you're in support, disagreement, you have other opinions, etc. This shouldn't be a combative space tonight, but rather a consultative one. We want to hear from you and genuinely understand where you stand on these things. So feel very free when we do get to questions and comments to take the mic and riff. I know it's being recorded. It's not going to be publicly available, I don't think. It's just for our purposes to put that into the consultation. So, I was very keen to have tonight to give people the opportunity to speak, and so here you are. Hopefully you can speak. Also, I'll acknowledge that Councillor Nosworthy's joined us at the back there. All right, let's move on. Christy. Oh, do I have it? Okay. Could you? Thank you. All right. So, as we've seen, this is the proposal. Now, the why. For me, this was sort of the reason I initially put forward the motion was as, I guess, a reaction or in response to the state government's TOD project, which, will really transform Homebush in a way that we've never seen in this part of Sydney before. It's already been rezoned and finalised as of last November, so this is already law, if you will. That entire precinct you see highlighted in purple has been approved for essentially high-rise living. So that's the Homebush, along Underwood Road from the rail line all the way up to the DFO is all going to be a mini city of its own. So that Homebush is going to have a very different character to the Homebush we know on the south side of the rail line. And so that's why this proposal was first considered, because of the change in the character of Homebush that we will see. Someone living on Burlington Road or on Rochester Street, or those who are familiar with the village at Rochester, will have a very different experience of what it means to be Homebush to those living on the north side. So there was genuine purpose behind this to try and really consolidate the two very different characters to either side of the rail line. So that's the starting point. Thank you. To give you an idea, this is a graphic of what we expect the north side to look like. It's actually cut off. It goes a lot further, and it's not very clear in the image, but the entire precinct in and around, hang on. So the rail line is actually where, can I steal the laser pointer? Yeah, thank you. So this is the rail line here. So if you look at the south side here, even the low-rise dwellings that we currently have there don't even feature in terms of visibility relative to how high some of these buildings will be. And I believe just here on the other side of the rail line, some of those old brick buildings that are there today have height approvals of over 100 meters. In fact, just over here, there's a HDA EOI that's been done for 140 meters, I think, 33 stories. So the point is that the state government is very, I was going to say very eager. They've already approved this entire precinct to be high-rise living, particularly dense in and around that immediate northern side of the rail line on in and around Station Street and Loftus Crescent there. Moving on. So three things. Two of, I think all of them we've touched on. So the TOD, the sawtooth boundary that exists, the previous changes to the boundaries in and around where they are today of Broughton and Arthur, they were done in the 70s, 80s, most recently that is, and previous times prior to that, but they chop and change in and around various houses and have been altered over the generations. So as you may see in the maps that some of you have, there isn't a clear line or boundary. It's not behind one set of houses, or it doesn't follow one street. So as Christy said, we're trying to bring that to a straight line. And of course, as I mentioned, with the TOD occurring, keep like communities together. Okay, two main concerns. Most of the feedback I've had, and I've had a lot of phone calls about this, emails, phone calls, text messages, people want to protect the village and its heritage. Homebush Village has been around for over 100 years. In fact, some of the shops have been the same type of shop for over 100 years. I know the butcher, the newsagent, the grocer, and one other are all still operating the same type of business as they were in 1908. So we have a very rich history in and around the village there. In fact, Homebush Station is one of the oldest stations in Sydney, far older than Strathfield Station. And of course, the public schools and the station, as I mentioned. So those are the concerns. What are we doing putting things that are named Homebush into the Strathfield suburb? It doesn't make sense. Okay, point taken. Further concerns are that it's a waste of money and no one's asked for it. The latter of those, of course, we've dealt with. It was in reaction to the TOD. And in terms of being a waste of money, I think the recovery of those funds is, if the concern is that council's wasting $25,000 on this project, or up to that amount has been budgeted for this, my personal view, I don't know if it's reflective necessarily of the organisation, is that if there is a potential increase in rates over time, that those funds will be recovered through the expected increase in some people's rates based on the value of their home going up. So it's not a massive amount of money, it's also not a massive concern. As was mentioned, rates are still calculated the same way, but if the valuer general decides that your home being in Strathfield is worth X dollars more, over time council recovers those rates. So it's not a big amount of money that's wasted, if you will, to use that language, and nor is it something that's not going to be recovered anyway. So moving on. Okay, my views. First thing, and it's very important to note this, is that in the proposal, what we've put forward is not the finalised version. So that is a proposal. As Christy mentioned, we can alter that, we can make adjustments to it, and that can go out for exhibition again for another month, and then we can act on what the adjusted version is. Now, I'm very inclined to make alterations based on the feedback we've had, and we'll look at a suggestion I have later on. I'm very inclined to do so based on feedback, and so that may delay things another month, but ultimately I'd rather a good outcome than a rushed one. Second one touches on that as well. The third one, which, I'll react to in my adjusted version, but I do think this talk of the misalignment of the suburb name in and around the schools and the village and whatnot it's sort of a moot point. I mean, all across Sydney there are public schools that have names that aren't congruent with the name of the suburb in which they're located. To use a local example, Flemington Station is in the suburb of Homebush West. So we have plenty of examples of this, not only here in Strathfield, but also in other parts of Sydney. I mean, Strathfield Library is in Homebush, so that's not a huge point, nor is it a very strong point either. And of course, the most historically relevant parts of Homebush have actually already been altered. North Strathfield today, which by the way is home to Strathfield North Public School, go figure, but North Strathfield was once Homebush. I mean, Homebush was the home of the Arnott's factories, and it was by Canada Bay Council renamed Strathfield North, or North Strathfield, sorry. The Flemington markets, which prior to that were the Flemington Abattoir, and of course even earlier were the Flemington race courses, or Homebush race courses at some point, have all been changed to Homebush West. The Flemington Station, of course, kept its name, and North Strathfield's there. And with the Todd, the entire precinct is going to be redeveloped as it is. So even some of those protected homes from years ago will be knocked down and turned into high-rises anyway. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there's actually, in terms of what we're trying to protect in heritage, there's not really a lot that we can do, because the state government's Todd and previous decisions over generations have altered what it means to be Homebush as it is. Notwithstanding, just to add a point that's not on there, when you mention Homebush to someone who's not from or familiar with the area, might throw this question to the crowd. What is the first thing they assume? Can anyone provide an answer? Olympic Park, exactly. So, I mean, the Olympic Park, there was once, I live in the north side of the rail, so I'm not affected by this, just for context. Olympic Park was once part of Homebush, or parts of it were. There was Homebush Bay, which was then renamed to Wentworth Point not so long ago. And so Homebush and its identity have been altered significantly over many generations, most recently with the state government's Todd. So concerns around heritage, I want to protect the heritage of the area, and my fear is that we will lose a sense of heritage in the village if it's associated with the same name as what will soon be a modern high-rise area on the north side. So anyway, I'm sort of riffing now. Let's move on. Okay, so this is an alternative, just a suggestion based on some of the feedback, and the idea would be to keep the Homebush public and the village, so the commercial buildings only, in the Homebush suburbs, so we can maintain the heritage of the space with the name, the Homebush Village. It stays in the suburb of Homebush. The school, Homebush Public, is still there. The train station is still leaving into Homebush, and something like that could, I think, satisfy a significant number of concerns that are out there around the naming of various things. So again, a suggestion, an alteration to the initial proposal, but I am inclined to support an alteration that provides everyone and keeps everyone happy and provides everyone with an outcome they're satisfied with to some degree. All right, moving on. Good. All right, so we have a lot of people here tonight, which is great. Very happy with that, but that also means we won't have time to give everyone the mic for significant periods. So I'm happy to take questions, comments, concerns. I'll try and limit it at maybe 1 or 2 minutes per person. So get to the point, and I'm happy to answer or just note your concerns, and we'll go from there. Chrissy will be our mic person.
Thank you, Matt. everyone. So I'm from the Homebush Residents Group, which is the Incorporated Residential Association for the affected area, exactly the area that's proposed to be renamed. So we are really grateful that council is considering this. So ever since the TOD came out, we have been speaking to the state government, basically proposing this. So we're very happy that councillors have obviously heard the community voice. For us, the main thing is the identity issue. I think residents in the affected area all have examples of people being confused about where we are when we say we're in Homebush or this is Homebush. To provide a bit of scientific analysis, as we were considering this new proposal and taking soundings from the community, we went to ABC News at the suggestion of a resident to look at what they think is Homebush. So ABC News tags all of their news stories according to where it happens. We looked at all the stories going back a couple of years, which are tagged as Homebush 2140. Not a single story among those, how many did I get? 48, 50. Not a single one of those happened in the affected area. 36 of them related to Sydney Olympic Park. 3 of them related to the northern part of Homebush. There were a few relating to railways, but nothing relating to the south of Homebush. And then we collected some anecdotal evidence for this kind of confusion. So we have stories about people who are driven by taxi drivers to the wrong side, and then it takes like 15 minutes to come back. We even had someone who was late for their hospital appointment because the taxi had gone to the wrong side, and they had to navigate back to the right side of Homebush. We have a story from somebody who lives in Rochester Street, and some of the bills, I think, come to the wrong address because the electricity and utility companies record an address in Strathfield. And then we have a story from some parents who were actually quite angry about this because their kids go to the same daycare as other kids in Strathfield. And when it came to school enrollment time, they found that they couldn't go to the same school as their child's best friend who lived 2 doors down because of the zigzag boundary. That on the same street, 2 doors down, the community is separated by this sawtooth boundary that makes no sense. And for us, the TOD was the impetus to do something about this, because once the TOD is implemented, the state government's projecting that 29,574 people will live in the TOD area. The population of Homebush South, the affected area, is only 2,998, 10%, about 10%. So it's only going to get worse for us. People would never think that this tiny corner of what everyone thinks of as Strathfield is actually Homebush. We're never going to have a taxi driver who will find their way to the right place again.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for that. Some great detail there. I think to extend some of the anecdotes, I mean, you watch the footy on the weekend and they say they're playing over at Homebush and it's clearly not Homebush. You know, it's the burden of living in an area with a famous landmark that once was Homebush. So, anyone else? Peter, we'll leave the Homebush Residents Group for a second. Maybe someone who's against, if they'd like to comment. Like I said, this is not a combative space. David?
I'm David Starr. I live at Newton Road. Grew up in Francis Street. I'm 78, born and bred in Abbotsford Road, so I know this area back to front. I've been on council many years ago, and I've seen the changes of postcodes in this area. I don't know whether I need this. Do I need this?
Yeah, just for the recording.
All right, I need it. All right, anybody, Steph? I'm against the change. Even when I was in Francis Street growing up as a kid, they changed it from Homebush to Strathfield West. I don't know what it's called now. It's probably called Strathfield or some other name. This constant changing of names causes more confusion. And in all fairness to the previous speaker, going to the ABC, I would refute most of the information you get. I understand cab drivers don't know where they're going these days. It's not a problem they can't find the street. So a lot of them shouldn't be cab drivers. My wife works at King's Cross, and trying to find a street in King's Cross is a nightmare. You don't know whether it's Darlinghurst, this or whatever. So I refute what you're saying, some of your information. I'm against it for a lot of reasons. Some of the comments which have been raised, the cost of this, 25,000, I refute 25,000. It's going to cost more than that. Council's time spending it. And even though the councillor here has talked about the TOD doesn't govern this side of the area. Sure, it's going to make an impact in terms of the name. In terms of the name Homebush, the significance is pretty strong. Listen to the traffic reports every day. What do they talk about? Talk about Homebush Drive. Talk about Homebush. They don't talk about Strathfield, okay? So everything you talk about confusion. Are they going to change it now and call it Strathfield Drive? What I'm concerned about, and even somebody getting up suggesting, and I knew this was going to happen, I think this is a land grab by some of the residents. Some of them have financial in their pocket. It's all about finance. Change it. I lived in Flemington. I lived in the Crescent, Flemington, good old called Flemmo, back in '83 when I got married. And it was called Flemmo. Didn't be behind me. But when I moved to Strathfield years later, I knew I'd moved to Strathfield because I paid a high price for it. And that was my choice. So my choice of living over here in Strathfield is that I do. I pay more for my rates than that. These properties down here, somebody made a comment. Sure, you call them Strathfield. It's all right saying, will their properties go up? Can they afford it? They will go up, don't worry. Because it's Strathfield, up goes the value general, so we'll put a bit more on it. The council's saying we get more money out of it. It's not about the council getting more money if the rates go up. The residents have to pay it. There are residents in that area that can barely afford to pay their rates now. So if it gets rezoned and becomes Strathfield and they have to pay more, who's going to pay the increase? You might say, oh, their property's worth more money. Sometimes they don't want the money. It's about the value they're paying. Changing records, you've talked about it. I can't go through all the points I've got here, but changing the records. Have any of you ever gone through changing records? Do you only own shares? Do any of you own any property or that? And you ever try to change the records? Do you understand the problem you go through and the frustration? So I can tell you, who's going to do all that work? There are a number of people here, and particularly in this area, elderly people, and I represent that market, that wouldn't have the experience and the knowledge to sit down and go through and change all their documents, and whether it's wills, whatever. Who's going to do all that for them? Are you going to do that? They don't have the time to do it, and they don't have the experience to do it. All these things are overlooked. I've got a multitude of other things I bring up on this. I am totally against changing it. There is no reason to change it. And also, which has been demonstrated, I say this is a land grab, is that somebody puts up an alternative already, another idea that will extend it further. What happens if somebody lives down near Kessel Avenue and we're not going to be part of the rezoning? We're going to be still called Homebush West. They'll have their nose out of joint. I live on the other side of the street now. Leave it as it is. There is a line which defines it, which is Broughton Road, Arthur Street. It'll never satisfy everybody, this change of direction. We all won't be satisfied. But for those that are pushing to change it, rethink it out. You bought in Homebush, keep the name. It's very important, it's significant. The importance of Homebush is significant because when the road was put through Parramatta Road, Homebush was the central point between Sydney and Parramatta. And I don't want to see it changed. So I have many other reasons I can contribute. I will be writing to, and I'm totally opposed to it. And the development on the other side of the line does not influence my changing boundaries. Leave the boundary as it is. Why? Because we're going to cause more confusion than ever.
Thank you, David. We will move maybe, we'll go to Ahmed in the back and then we'll come to Peter. So just behind you, Christy. We'll go this gentleman, then Ahmed, and then we'll go to Peter.
The transport-oriented one?
Oh, yep, sure.
Yeah.
Are we in favour or against?
Sorry?
Are we in favour or against?
Just with common sense.
Sure.
Hey, there you go. That's the one. Thank you. Santa and Malni from Kessel Avenue. So we are right at the boundary of what's proposed now. We're just next to Airy Park.
Sorry, just quickly, could you repeat your name just for recording purposes?
Yeah. Santan and Malni from 28 Kessel Avenue.
Thank you.
So we are right at the Airy Park, right at the boundary. So we bought in 1992, and my driver's license says I'm in Strathfield West. So all of a sudden, somehow I became Homebush West. Anyway, the reason I put that up is you've basically said that you want to keep like communities together. And the shaded area is full of high rises and everything else that the government wants, and which is nothing like what is in our area. So there is no way that that's going to be called Homebush, and then we're going to be called Homebush West, because we are nothing like them. So you're not keeping the like communities together. The second thing is the brochure says clearly south of the railway line. So if you see the railway line, we are clearly south of the railway line. So how we got missed out in your renaming, I'm not sure.
Just to be specific, the brochure says parts of Homebush that are south of the railway line. So I think
Well,
its intention is clear.
it says proposed suburbs boundary change, Homebush in bracket south of railway.
Yeah. So the parts of Homebush that are south of the railway line. That's
Right, not Homebush West.
no.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what it says. Yeah.
Okay, that's what that says. And then it talks about major road. So what seems to be the boundary seems to be the cycle track. There's no major road there between what's proposed as Strathfield and what remains as Homebush West. There's a cycle track. It's not a major road. So Centenary Drive is a major road. Now you could use that as a boundary. That's fair enough. So in many ways, what was proposed by somebody else, I'm not sure who, and I think you had the slide up. Could you bring that slide back again, please? The one that's with the proposed change?
Raj's one, yeah. Do you have it? Sorry.
Yeah, so if you look at that, now that's clearly south of the railway line. And if you want to chop it off where the Centenary Drive is, go for your life, because that's a major road. So then it then comes in, it fits in exactly with what you are saying. So, what,
Yeah, it's clearer to everybody that, okay, this south of the railway line and east of Centenary Drive is Strathfield.
so does that make sense?
Look, it does. It makes sense. I understand what you're saying. I guess my sort of issue with this as a proposal is that your Strathfield and Homebush train stations are very close to each other. It's about 1 kilometre. And at Homebush train station, if the village, in my alternate version, is kept in Homebush, you can get out at Homebush station on either side, and you're still in Homebush. Strathfield, you're at Strathfield. If this takes place, essentially you're in Strathfield at Strathfield, Homebush, and Flemington stations.
What's the problem?
So,
It's I mean, you
I don't know
gotta
if that's less confusion or more, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but there's already confusion. What difference does it make? So, I mean, essentially, south of the railway line, east of the major road, and there you go. You have your solution if you want to change.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Look, I guess my again, just to extend my point, we're trying to create less confusion, keep like communities together. I think the character of Flemington is very different to the character of Homebush, which is different to the character of Strathfield. So, like I said at the start, we're doing this in reaction to the Todd. I think if we overextend the point and maybe just somewhat agree with Mr. Starr, whose comments earlier illustrated, everyone's going to be in Strathfield at this stage. So I think we should, yeah. No, nothing's wrong with it. The more the merrier. But all right, we'll go to. I think we'll go to Ahmed just behind you. Correct. Yes, it was Strathfield West. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Noted. Noted. We'll go to Ahmed, and then we'll go to Peter, and then anyone else, and we'll come to. Sorry, what was your name? Shirley, and we'll come to Shirley. All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sorry.
Who would you like? Who's
did
next?
you want to say anything? No, all good. All right, we'll come to Peter. Oh, yep, sorry. Yep.
Thank you very much for hosting this. I think it's a great idea. Just one thing I did not understand earlier today, and I'd like to welcome everyone to go for a walk with me down Broughton Street after this meeting. Because as you walk down Broughton Street, we will pass between Strathfield and Homebush 16 times as you walk down one street of Broughton Street. That's a fact. We can point out the houses where it changes, but that's a fact. As some of you know, I've been very critical of council about a number of issues over the last
And we're
few
very
months.
grateful for that, Peter. We're
It's
very
fine. But in this one, this proposal, and I'm not sure who's taking credit. I think it should go to the Homebush Residents Group because we were the ones who raised this issue at the top about the name change. Okay, someone else wants to take credit, that's fine. But that proposal, as it currently stands, is really well thought out. It meets all the criteria of the GNB. It takes into account major physical boundaries. It takes into account what are called parish boundaries. And they're very important in the assessment. I would say, and I haven't seen the alternate proposals until just now, but neither of the two alternate proposals so far shown would, in my view, actually get up with the GMB because it falls foul against physical boundaries, it falls foul against the parish boundaries, whereas the current proposal falls within the boundaries. So if the council wants to look at an extended proposal, I suggest they do it in two parts. The proposal that currently stands will get through, in my view. The second, very dodgy, in my view, in terms of getting approval. The next issue is the rates going up. Okay, let's assume that if you live in Homebush and there's it varies from time to time, a 10 to 20% discount to Strathfield prices for the similar houses. Let's assume the rates do go up because property values go up for the affected people in the proposal. I don't think anyone's proposing that the council will spend more money. The net result of that means that if your property prices go up because you turn from Strathfield to Homebush, from Homebush to Strathfield, it means other people in Homebush, their rates will go down or the growth of the rates will go down. So even if you don't live in the proposed area and you think, so let me finish, if you live in the proposed area, if you don't live in the proposed area, you shouldn't be against this anyway because the chances are your rate, you'll benefit financially from other people transferring across. And the last item I'd make is that, look, I think people, we're all talk about identity, and a lot of us do identify more with the Strathfield area because our children go to Strathfield-based schools. The houses are more similar to Strathfield-type houses south in the proposed area. And really, you should be thinking about who should decide this matter. Does anyone who lives in Vaucluse, should they have a view on this proposal? No. If you live in Concord, which houses the Mortlake Public School, should you have a view on this? No. If you live in parts of Homebush that aren't going to be affected, except for the fact that your rates are unlikely to go up as fast as anyone else's because you would be cross-subsidised, should you have a view? No. So it should come down to the local residents. And as I said, the current proposal meets every criteria. And the boundary, that natural boundary at Airy Park, is a parish boundary. And the government will be very unlikely to approve a name change which spans across a parish boundary. And I agree with the other guy about Flemington. My mum lives in Homebush West. She still gets mail addressed to Strathfield West. And that area should have always been called Flemington anyway. because it was named after a war hero. But, you know, extending it doesn't work. The current proposal, I think, is a commendable proposal. I think Christy and the other council officers who've put the work in have done a great job. And last thing, I really think the council should be commended by changing the core flutes advertising this proposal, because they've covered more than one language in that, so that it's opened it up to everyone who's in the area. That's all. Sorry, I've taken more than 2 minutes.
No, thanks very much, Peter. Cups. All right, just quickly, are you for or against? Yep, sure.
Thanks, Peter. It's really good to get positive feedback.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify on the rates issue? Because I think there might be a bit of misunderstanding in that regard. Council will not collect any extra rates through this change. So, for example, say JP lives in Strathfield and he pays $50, and I live in Homebush and I pay $25, and Christy lives in Homebush West and she pays $25, and then we make this change and all of a sudden I now live in Strathfield. What happens is JP might pay $50 for $45, let's say. I'll probably pay $45, but Christy's rates will come down. Okay, so she'll pay 10. So all up, we're actually still getting $100 in rates. It just means that JP and I are now paying the same, but Christy's paying a bit less. So just to help you understand how the rates work, because land values go up in an area, it doesn't mean the council collects more in rates. Does that help?
Because there was some shyness up the back. So council then charges the rates based on the land value. That's why Michael's saying that they change differently. So someone asked, oh, well, couldn't we just hold the rates where they are? But we actually can't. We do it based on the land value that Michael was talking about.
Yeah, so you've got it. So if you think about the rates that council collect, it's a bucket. The bucket doesn't change, but who pays it changes based on the proportional change in land values. So if land values in this area go up by proportionally more than the rest of the area, then those ratepayers will naturally pay a bit more, and others will pay a little bit less. We can't. Yeah. So if this resulted in an increase in land values, then you would, and then other areas would naturally pay less because council can't collect anymore.
The overall bucket doesn't change in size. Yeah. We'll just go now to the next comment, query, question. Happy to take refutations from those who've already spoken who might want to re-engage. But we'll go to someone. So we just had Peter in favour. Is anyone against that would like to speak? Against? Okay. We've got. Well, sorry, I said Shirley earlier, so we'll go straight to you, and then we'll go up to the back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my name's Shirley Gillett. I live at 31 Marion Street in Strathfield, but I was a resident of Loftus Crescent for 38 years, only having recently moved in the last few years as a result of the development, I might add. I'm just wanting to comment on why this was being considered, because I consider the premise on some of these points, or the two of the points, which I don't think are really quite valid. The first one was this confusion that I must have been confused for 37 years then, having lived in Loftus Crescent, because there was no confusion in Loftus Crescent. There was no confusion around that area at all. Nobody, that my neighbours, nobody on either side of the line, we were ever confused. We were never, emergency services always turned up. I'm sure there's always going to be the odd taxi that doesn't get there, but generally speaking, for 37 years, that was perfectly good, and there was no confusion at all in that area. So I know this is sort of talking a little bit differently in that sense, but that was a premise that has been written down here. And I have no value, I can't see any value in that at all. I also was part of the original housing strategy back in the mid-90s and the early 2000s. So I know all about over there with housing, and I can see where this is coming from, because this again is with housing. It's coming through the state government and talking about high-rise and taking all the properties. And it causes a lot of distress to people, and we fought very hard for Homebush. We succeeded in some parts, because it's interesting with the boundary. When we came to council and we were talking about the development, council wouldn't move the boundary because they didn't want Strathfield to have high-rise. There was high-rise, but that was already up. But they didn't want any more high-rise. They wanted it in Homebush. And so they wouldn't move the boundary. Okay, so that meant that all of the south of the line and over the line, as you can see now, that was to be kept for Homebush, because they were going to pick up the slack of high-rise development. And some of you may well have been around long enough to know that. So I think really it's some of the couple of points that are made. Of course, they're different characters. Homebush is quite different. My grandma's house is still heritage in Eastbourne Road in Flemington. I was born in Homebush, as was David. So we've got a long history and we understand the area very, very well. I was also on the traffic committee, the local traffic committee with council for several years as well. And most of the area, of course, Strathfield has the status area, and that's how it will be. And I think a lot of people enjoy that status rather than Homebush or even Flemo or Homebush West. Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. We'll go down to the back, and then we'll come to, sorry, what was your name? Yep. Miles? All right, we'll go to the lady just behind you, then we'll come to Miles after.
Okay.
The lady with her hand up, yep.
No, I should have put joggers on. Wrong shoes.
Hi, my name is Malini. I'm from Kessel Avenue. So we've lived in this house for 32 years. We also have a property in Strathfield down Pemberton Street. And I must say, I pay the rates, and we pay the same rates for both properties. So I don't see any reason why Kessel Avenue needs to be Homebush West when Pemberton is already called Strathfield. I mean, the rates are the same. It's not true that the rates are less just because you live in Homebush West. I mean, you can check, and
That is accurate. The calculation applies evenly across the municipality.
Well,
so
all I see is the bill, and it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
Also, we need to take into account the changing characteristics of the population, right? It may have been different 30 years ago. Right now, the characteristics are changing, and there is a different vibe in Homebush and Homebush West. And I can tell you, we've been driving up and down for years, and the vibe is definitely getting very similar. It was different many years ago, but right now I can see a similar vibe in Homebush and Homebush West shopping. So we need to take that into account as well, not look at historical facts. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And then Miles.
Hi everyone, thank you Mayor. Good evening, Miles Fole is my name. I live here on Red Mile Road. I cycle to work in Olympic Park. You might see me in my yellow vest in the morning. I support the proposal. I thank the other speakers for the points they've made that I wasn't aware of, so thank you for that. To me, the character of an area takes in things like topography, natural boundaries and borders, as well as built and man-made, like in the case of the railway. The vegetation, the similarity, and the built environment as well. So to me, living and travelling through this part of Homebush and into Olympic Park, they are vastly different. And that's even before you put up that development proposal. Hey, we need to house our young people. We need to give them a place to live. I don't oppose development, but they're going to be totally different. It's going to be the Gold Coast versus a traditional residential suburb. So in my mind, that just says that that's a sensible proposition. I'm open to where the line should be, and I've heard there are different views there. Good luck working that out. But in terms of the character of an area, how it's recognised by its residents and visitors, I think that's a sensible extension of the border.
Thanks very much, Miles. All right, we'll come to the front here, and then we'll go 1, 2. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Valerie, and I live on Abbotsford Road, so impacted by the proposal.
Just a bit closer to your mouth.
I think to the point made before around changing of records, I don't think it's an urgent problem. If council was to go ahead, and so I'm clearly for it, because right now, sometimes I get mail for Abbotsford Road, Strathfield, and I still get the mail. So I don't think if we had to change records, it would be an urgent thing. I can confess I am a lawyer by trade, so I can help local residents fill out the forms if needed, but I don't think it's a problem that we can't handle, and we don't have to handle it urgently. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Valerie. We'll come.
Thank you very much. I'm from Kessel Avenue. Kumar, my name is Kumar.
Yep.
So I have 2 points to mention here. Also, actually 3 points. But
just a bit closer to you.
if you don't mind, could you please put the traffic, the profile changes, the page? This one. Yeah, no, the other one. No, not this one, the one before.
The Todd, I think. Yeah.
The traffic one? No, yeah, this one.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, you mentioned the high-rise building, another thing is Homebush.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit confused now. What is it differ for the Homebush West and Homebush? So character-wise, Homebush West and Homebush is almost same. I'm living there nearly 30 years. I don't see much different. Even Homebush West and here, Homebush, we have almost 3-4-story building. It's not more than that. So I don't know how you are differentiating the character-wise. That is one point. Other point, if you look at even you can see that, if you don't mind, go to one of the proposal one.
I think the Todd built the environment.
Not this one,
Not this one, no.
propose, yeah, this one.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, Homebush West, the south part of the railway line and north part of the railway line completely isolated. If you want to go from one side of the Homebush West to other side, either you have to go to this heavy traffic through the Olympic Drive or go through the Bridge Road. And a lot of these delivery people, they are very new to this area. They are experiencing. They think the Homebush West is go to the main part of the Homebush, and coming this way have to go through a lot of traffic and other issues. The other thing is, if you take this red color one as an Strathfield, there is no more to call this Homebush West on that side, because there is Homebush is no more in the west side of the Homebush West. I mean, this side of the Homebush West. So it doesn't make sense. You got the point? Yeah, if you don't call this Homebush, then you can't call that part as the Homebush West. It doesn't make sense. That is one of my important points to make. That's all.
Thanks very much. Someone else? We'll come back to Raj. Maybe this gentleman at the back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danny. So we've been residents of Strathfield for over 20 years, and I actually grew up in Homebush Village. I went to school at St. Patrick's.
Just a bit closer to your mouth if you can. Sorry, that's all right.
So we've been residents of Strathfield for over 20 years. We strongly support this proposal. I mean, council are being proactive here they're not being reactive. So the reality is, the north of the railway, the way you see it now, it's changed a lot in the past 12 years. Since the LEP came out in 2012, single dwelling homes have been replaced by developments that are 6, 8, 10 floors. That's going to change again. Loftus Crescent, because we need housing, the state government has led an accelerated TOD north of the railway that will result in developments of around 30 stories. Council are seizing the opportunity now to prevent contention down the track. This is all about having harmony between the north and south of the railway. I lived in Homebush Village for 5 years. We now live in Strathfield. I love the area. At St. Pat's, the soccer boys will train at Airy Park, Homebush. It would be a less than 5-minute walk. The rugby boys would walk for 15 minutes or 10 minutes to Hudson Park in Strathfield. It never made sense. I myself, growing up, would get confused as an 11, 12-year-old telling my parents, oh, we're playing in Homebush. They're like, oh, near the DFO? No, Airy Park. There was always a confusion there, even for myself as a young child. The emergency services, I had a personal experience of 15 years ago when I had a temperature. My father put my feet in hot water and I passed out. The ambulance came late. I passed out twice. The first time I remembered passing out. The second time I didn't. So it's a serious issue about emergency services arriving on time. It's not a joke, and it's not a laughing matter, and it's nothing that's been thrown out there as an invalid excuse. The character is going to change significantly north of the railway. South of the railway, the TOD has been introduced there. Now, if you truly love the area, which I do, the area south of the railway hasn't changed much in the last 20 years. Most people don't want it to change. By maintaining the identity separate from north to south of the railway, it will reduce the opportunity for 2-story manor homes of FSRs of 0.8 to 1 to pop up in Abbotsford Road. And I can guarantee you, you have a lot more resistance and residents here going against that. So this is an opportunity to differentiate the identity of Homebush as a TOD and Strathfield. So we don't want a situation where contentions are raised down the track, where there's a blurring of lines and people say, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. So this is an opportunity to maintain the character, maintain the identity, and maintain the area we all truly love. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone else wishing to speak? Like I said, for those who have spoken and would like to re-engage, your refutations are welcome. Maybe down the back, Christy. Actually, do we have someone new here? Yep.
Just from what I've been hearing, can we take it as our friends from Homebush West, they're practically, generally, they're in support of the application rather than being against it, but they're sort of crying out loud for council to take further approach to bring the area as a probably common sense boundary towards things. So basically, majority is in support, rather than being they want the study to be extended to the area.
Yeah, I
rather
think
than being against.
That is an interesting point to make. For the people in the room who are in favour of the petitioned altered boundary, which is the Homebush West inclusion south of the line, are you generally in support? You would just like to see it go further? Can you put your hand up if you fall into that bracket? Okay. Thank you. Noted. Yeah, Peter.
Just as I said earlier, I don't think extending it past Airy Park will get up. But let's say the council proposes that to go west of Airy Park with the name Strathfield. There's another thing the council should do at the same time, and that is get rid of the Homebush West suburb by amalgamating the remainder of Homebush West, which is currently the markets and Corrali Avenue, etc. And I bought my second house in Corrali Avenue. I no longer own it. But then the council could have two suburbs left. Homebush, which is entirely north of the railway line from Strathfield to Lidcombe, get rid of Homebush West, and then Strathfield south of the railway line. And that would at least give the council the possibility to say to the Geographic Names Bureau that Homebush West is no longer a sustainable suburb because it's too small, fixes that problem, and Homebush West is going to become eventually like the rest of the Homebush area, north of the railway line. So just putting it out there. If you want to propose west of Airy Park, think about combining the rump of Homebush West, north of the railway line, together with Homebush, and then that's a large suburb in its own right. And no confusion, one less name.
Noted, thank you. Just to the gentleman at the back.
Thank you. So, I mean, the comment that was made is you can't have a Homebush West if you don't have a Homebush on the east of it. So there's no Homebush West. It just doesn't make sense. It's pretty stupid. So it's got to have extended all the way as Strathfield. And as far as these parish lines and all that is concerned, well, that's all history and that's important. But then if there was a parish, how come we were called Strathfield West before? If there was a parish, lines couldn't be crossed. It was obviously crossed 30 years ago. Well, what's stopping us from crossing again and calling it Strathfield? So I don't buy into this parish stuff. I'm happy to do the research, but yeah, that's just gone. And you can join Homebush as it's drawn there with what is the Homebush West. That's nonsense because you're trying to demarcate using a railway line and trying to cross those two, you just get another zigzag. So that's a wasted exercise. Thanks.
Thank you. Good. Anyone else? We'll come to Raj at the front. Yep.
Thank you, Christy. Mr. Mayor, councillors, I'm here to speak for about 1,000 people who are not all here today, but they have signed petitions, and many of those have already been given to the officers, and some of the signatures are coming through online. We talked here today about few things. We talked about clear boundary. We talked about the identity of the places that we live in. We talked about emergency services. And I was first elected in the council in 2012. And all of those things ring bell in my head. I can identify. I have been approached on many occasions by people living in Corrali Avenue precinct saying that the postman couldn't find their place because they didn't know which side of the railway line was Homebush West. They're moving from this side to that side. I have been told, seen postal services, even also couriers, struggling to find out where the place is. I have seen many people not getting their posts or their deliveries on many, many occasions. So considering all of those things, considering the requests that I have received over the last month or so from 1,000 or so odd people that I have met, including many business owners, I think the people are saying that if on the north side it's all high-rises or Homebush, where is the resemblance between that Homebush and this side of Homebush? There is no resemblance. If we call Homebush the north side of the station, north side of the railway line, south side, where we have all the different, totally different character, it could not be Homebush West. it could not be Kurali Avenue if we call it Homebush West, and also this side we call Homebush West. There is a big difference between the characters of these two places. The other point that correctly some of the speakers have mentioned is the Kurali Avenue, Fraser Street. If you go to Fraser Street, which is adjacent to Kurali Avenue, it is still Strathfield West. I do not know if there is any other street called Strathfield West, but that is still Strathfield West, because Kurali Avenue was taken off the road. The boundary that we just saw a few minutes ago, the artificial cycling road, that's not really a very strongly visible boundary of any magnitude. I think if we want to really differentiate between the suburbs, we have to have a boundary that is easily differentiable, where people can easily understand. Now, what that could be one of the slides that was shown before. If I could ask Christy to bring that, please. That one, yeah. I think one of the boundaries that I am hearing from many people who have spoken with me are saying that there are only, if we call the dark pink side Strathfield, which is probably the current proposal, roughly, except some of the modifications that we have seen before. There are 4.5 streets. Those streets are very small streets, probably 300 to 500 meters long. If we include those streets, then you can see that the character of this area would be distinguishedly different from the character of the north side of Homebush, what we call Homebush. It is again much different compared to the character of the Homebush West on the other side. Now, there are businesses on the west side of the road, that's called Homebush Bay Drive. There is no residential building there. Nobody lives there. It's a business. And many people living in that area have also mentioned to me that their value of their business, and they are providing a lot of jobs. That area creates a lot of jobs for Strathfield residents. And if we call that Strathfield, they are of the view that the value of their business, who are providing jobs for our local people, that also go up. So I think, considering the various opinions that I can see, considering the views of number of people who are interested in the proposal, who are investing their time and consideration, signing a petition and all that, and who are dedicated, feel strongly about how the boundaries should be differentiated, given proper logic. On behalf of all those people who have signed this petition, I would like to request you all to consider that this map, what is shown on this slide, the light pink and the darker pink, we could probably call the whole area as a Strathfield. That will do two things. That will just satisfy a lot of people.
When you're ready, Raj,
also,
just wrap up.
Also, that will support our businesses who can create opportunities, jobs and opportunities for our people. And that will also differentiate the character of south side of the railway line and the north side of the railway line. And there was a proposal between that if we call the rest of the Homebush, nobody has mentioned anything before, but that could be okay. I do not see people.
All right.
Thank you. You will say.
Thank you, Raj. We'll just jump to Peter quickly for a point. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
We might jump maybe to David if you wanted to make any comments on that.
No, just.
We'll just wrap up, Raj.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Thanks
saying
very
that I
much.
do not see any big
Thank you.
view against that proposal that Peter is proposing.
Yeah, thanks
So
very much.
thank you for listening.
Yeah, just. We'll just get some final comments as well. So if you had, we'll
Just a
we'll
couple of
close up in
things.
a few minutes. So
In
any
terms
final
of
remarks?
the history of it, and the gentleman over there just mentioned it, that area which you've been talking about, particularly Parramatta Road, was always known as Homebush, where the Ford factory. I can remember as a young kid riding along Parramatta Road delivering telegrams on a Saturday. So the history of the area is quite strong. And to me, it was always known as Flemmo. I grew up in the area. People talk about what schools they went to. I went to the schools here. My kids have been here. So we didn't need to go through all the history, because to me, that's all crap. That's all superfluous. And I do regret the fact that today in a society that people can't find the right address. Even when I lived in Francis Street, it was commonly known. We always had 3 addresses: Lidcombe, Francis Street, South Strathfield, Francis Street, and where I lived in Homebush. But listen, we got through it. So people have talked about this thing. Gentlemen over there talking about business and the impact it has on business. That's a furphy. That's crap. Does it really make any difference whether it's Homebush, West, Flemington or whatever? Makes no damn difference. So that's a bit of a furphy. Some of the comments here, I understand the gentleman here mentioned he lives in the area. He's not opposed to it. He lives up this area. From my point of view, I bought in Strathfield years ago, and I bought here and I paid for it. And in terms of value, if I was buying a unit and somebody said it's in Strathfield and they said in Corrali Avenue, I certainly wouldn't be associated, and I don't want to be disrespectful in terms of the value of a unit in there as against the value of a unit in Strathfield. There's a substantial difference. If you want to start renaming places, it does have, forget about talking about values on properties, it does have a difference when you're selling it. So if you bought in a particular area, if you want to change it, the gentleman lives in Strathfield, if you don't mind it, and somebody says, oh, they're selling units down in Homebush for 200,000, you say, oh, yeah, well, that's bad luck, I live in the area. It does devalue a little bit. I know it seems it's put down to some of the people here. In some ways, I understand the Mayor's thing, and I understand about Todd. I'm substantially concerned about Todd. I could talk about the issues of Todd. All very good for the state government to bring it in, but what about all the people over there living in those houses that are going to be displaced? That's what they can afford. They don't want to live in units and high-rise. But anyway, all I just want to say is that, in principle, a lot of the comments tonight I think have been good, and I've taken some other points on view. I'm still opposed to it. What concerns me is a lot of people live over this side, if I call it this side of the fence, don't seem to be represented here tonight. I think that's disappointing. So evidently they accept it, and that's the complacency in society. I'm not in favour of it. I don't want to see the change. And the things you've talked about tonight, I have to tell you, if you aren't confused, you have to be. They've gone through 29 changes here tonight. So if you can work out, this is one plan, no, we might move it down here. How about we rename it this and that? If anybody can work it out tonight, you're going to be a damn genius. I really don't know what we're voting on, and I really think this has got to be pulled and rethought about and resubmitted. Probably the council should come up with 2 or 3 options that you can have a look at and say, let's go with option 1 or option 2. But the way it is tonight, and in all fairness to the Mayor, that you've come out with another proposal confuses it. I understand you want to talk about the issues about renaming it because of the development. And by the way, somebody's talked about the changes in the area in terms of houses and cultural needs. That's got nothing to do with the price of fish. Nothing. What do you think? Do you think I'm selective where I live now? Oh, excuse me, there's Asians living in the street or Lebanese. That's got nothing to do with who lives in. We're a multicultural thing, and I accept everybody here. As a kid that growing up, I have to tell you, I enjoy walking from where I do down to Flemington, walking down Henley Road. I think it's a great situation to see such a wonderful environment which we have there. And do I put myself different to the people there? No. I don't want to change what we have. I want to leave the boundary where it is, and let's get on with the job of doing other things in the council.
Thanks very much, David. Any final remarks around the room? All right. Take one down here, maybe one last one. All right, we'll go to the corner to finish up.
So I just want to say 2 things. One is Loftus Crescent is not in the affected area, so the fact that someone who lived in Loftus Crescent for 38 years didn't experience any confusion sort of rather proves our point. If you live north of the railway, Homebush is Homebush. If you live south of the railway, it's confusing to everybody. And the other aspect is similarly, if you live in Strathfield, current Strathfield, and you never experience the confusion of people who live in Homebush South, then that sort of rather proves the point as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does Strathfield have any plans for development at all, or is it just limited to just Homebush only?
In the Todd?
Sorry?
Is that in the,
Or
do you mean broadly speaking? Or
just anywhere in Strathfield? Does it have in part of the government changes to increase? Does Strathfield have? Is it affected Strathfield at all? Is it only just has the government
the
just
Todd
said?
does reach Strathfield. Hang on, the Strathfield Triangle, but I don't know if that's actually in Strathfield suburb or if that's still in. I might just.
It's only the low to mid-rise housing.
Yeah.
But it's Strathfield Triangle, isn't it?
Yeah. So Strathfield Triangle, so the north side of around the train station, it's not dealt with by the Todd, but it does fall into Strathfield. And then, of course, the Homebush Todd, of course, is in our municipality, not in the suburb of Strathfield. I would also say that, with, two other things. So the town centre master plan will probably see a change in the character of what's around Strathfield Station. And, of course, the medium and low density housing strategy, which is going to change the allowances from the state around things like duplexes and townhouses and whatnot. So there are lots of planning reforms coming from the state. There's also things like the Housing Development Authority, which makes it much easier for developers to make applications for high-rises or developments, broadly speaking. So there's a lot happening. What's actually been earmarked for Strathfield, all I can think of is the Strathfield Triangle near the train station, and some of the other reforms coming in, such as the town centre master plan and the lower medium density housing strategy. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to piece it together because that gentleman over here was just trying to say if you want to protect it, I feel like that the compromise is we need to change the name to keep the look. I guess I don't know if that's what's really if that's what's really happening, So yeah, I think what he's touched on is probably the main point.
Yeah. Go for it.
There's a second tier Todd, which is 0 to 400 meters and 400 to 800 meters from the station. That applies to the south side of the railway. So in effect, a property owner can go to council south of the railway now, and there is certain potential there for a blurring of the lines because Strathfield also has the Todd, 0 to 4, 4 to 8, but the majority of the Golden Mile isn't included in the Todd guidance area. So there's an interactive map, and the majority of Strathfield, the suburb, that's within 800 meters of the station, has been excluded from the second tier Todd. That second tier Todd currently applies to south of the railway. So you can effectively, on a 1,000 square metre block, lodge an application with Strathfield Council for a 2-storey manor home in Abbotsford Road with a ratio of 0.8 to 1. So there is a trade-off there. And we do need housing. The idea of the suburb boundary change being a clear, identifiable boundary, which is the railway, and not timber fences or dented colour-bond fences. I mean, I walk the area and it's ridiculous. Strathfield, Homebush. You go on Homebush Road, you're passing two suburbs within 300 metres, and you cross the boundary about 3-4 times. Along with Braun Road, Arthur Street, it's the same thing. I get confused. There's blocks in Strathfield that look like they're in Homebush West. So the whole idea is by putting the name south of the railway, Strathfield, it gives a better opportunity for housing to flourish north of the railway, and the south side, the identity to stay relatively the same. So it hasn't changed much in 20 years. And if this proposal goes ahead, and council, the mayor, deputy mayor, and all the councillors and the council staff need to be congratulated on this. You guys are thinking ahead, and you are avoiding a conflict down the track that's going to be contentious. The reality is people in the same suburb, if this stays unchanged, you're going to have people in units that are 25, 30 levels up in the air looking down at houses, historic houses in Homebush. And I just think it's a win-win situation for everyone if this proposal is supported, and we have to put our full support behind Strathfield Council and have all faith that they're acting in the best interest of all residents.
Thank
everyone.
you very much. Now, sorry, we won't go into that. I don't know the answer either, but we won't go into it. What I will say is that I'm very grateful that you've all come tonight and had your 2 cents. We're going to finish up now. I've given a lot of time for everyone to speak. So at 8:30, we're going to close tonight. So it's 8:27 now. Very proud of what we've had tonight, which has been a really fruitful discussion. As it's been recorded, it will be included. A lot of the commentary, all the commentary tonight will be included in the consultation. So this is a part of the consultation, if you will. But if you would like to make proposals or give any further feedback, we're still open until the 12th of September. So you have just over a week to continue to provide any commentary you would like to the consultation. But otherwise, thank you very much to the staff for putting tonight on and helping us chair tonight. Thank you to all those who have made meaningful contributions. And thank you very much to the people who have worked hard to put petitions and whatnot together for alterations, etc. We'll close tonight's meeting. Like I said, it's the 12th of September that the consultation closes. We have just over a week. Thanks, everyone.